Come, let's return to Lys and share the good news about our Far Eastern reinforcements. That was something I wanted to... Because I don't think I completely picked up on exactly what they were saying about getting the ships to Eorzea. Because obviously they would need to get the majority of their forces to Eorzea by ship. And they talked about the East Aldernard Trading Company, but then also mentioned that they probably would not want to help with our war. So then they would have to find another route. But thankfully we had people that could navigate. You know, assuming he was talking about Ugiri, you know, because of the refugees or whatever. I'm going to have to look that up again later to get exactly how all that was planned out. Go on ahead, Lavenza. I will join you in Alamigo with our advance party as soon as I can. Although, yeah, she's supposed to be with the advance party, so... While you and my Lord Hien are away crossing swords with the Empire in distant Alamigo, I shall be here with the remainder of our forces, watching our borders. Pray send the Garleans my regards. No, yeah, it's got the whole conversation from the cutscene, so I'm not trying to reread through that. Parley on the front lines. Hien stands ready to depart for Alamigo. We must leave now to convene with Eorzea's leaders, and it may be some time before I return to Doma. Hakuro, I leave you in command. My lord. I shall assemble an advance party with all haste and join you in Alamigo forthwith. I've just received word from Lys. The Alliance has established a base camp near Alamigo's northeastern border. Once we've arrived in the locks, we're to report to a resistance officer stationed in Porta Praetoria, who will point us in the right direction. Let's not keep them waiting. Yeah, I remember this being a really good cutscene, just the parlay with Varus. Just like well written dialogue. Here we are again, ready to fight the same foe. Yet I would not be anywhere else. This conflict concerns us all. Come what may, we cannot allow the Empire to regain its grip on Alamigo. Here, I think we found the guide Lys mentioned. Ah, you must be the Scion party I was told to look out for. If you'll follow me, I'll take you directly to Alliance headquarters.
Welcome back, you two. Greetings, Lord Hien. Glad you could join us.
Glad to be here. I would have come sooner, where our own defense is not in question, but I am pleased to report that our soldiers are assembling for deployment to Alamigo as we speak.
We're grateful for your support. Thanks to the efforts of our allies, it won't be long before we've established defensive positions on this front as well.
We have some good news too. Alphino has come back to us. As for the bad news,
So, Alphino won't wake up, Gaius van Baelsar is alive and hunting Ascians, and the Empire is planning to poison us all with toxic gas. Does that sound about right? Ordinarily, any one of those things would have left me in shock. But the way things have been lately, it's all starting to seem pretty normal. Getting back to your report, are we sure this Black Rose is the weapon Maxima was talking about?
It fits the description. And it seems we have Alphino to thank for sparing us an early demonstration of its effectiveness. I have a feeling this won't be the last time his bravery in the Empire will serve us here in Eorzea. The threat of an unknown weapon has had us all on edge. But now that we know what we're dealing with, we can take steps to defend against it. As for Gaius, I'm not sure what to think. Am I happy he's alive? Not in the slightest. Am I happy he's hunting Ascians? Aye, I'd have to say I am.
Oh, speaking of Garleans you didn't expect to see, we have a tale of our own, as it happens. When we sent envoys to the Imperial Army to request talks, they returned with the message that Varys Zos Galvus would be attending.
The Emperor himself. Well, Varys did sanction the Popularis peace mission. But knowing that an Ascian walks in his son's skin, I do not see how we can trust him or anyone from that nest of vipers.
The Alliance would proceed with negotiations regardless, if only to give ourselves more time to prepare. We do, however, require your cooperation.
Right. Yes. So, as a condition for the talks to go forward, the Empire has requested that a member of the Scions be present. There'll be a representative from each Alliance nation, of course, but I'm afraid we have to ask that you come along too.
Gods, Lise. You know how much I hate politics. But then, what choice do I have? Alphino and the others aren't going to do it. Very well. I shall attend as the Scion's representative.
In case you're wondering why I didn't ask you, the Empire also requested the presence of Eorzea's champion.
I'll be there. I'm not fond of politics either. Yeah. I'll be there.
That's settled then. We don't know what Varys means to bring to the table, or why he wants you there, but having you close at hand will make all the difference.
The meeting will take place on the border. Anticipating an early assault, we mean to position the bulk of our forces nearby.
The Alliance leaders should already be on their way. Once you're ready, we can head out and join them.
If Charlene could not negotiate peace with the Empire... There we go. If Charlene could not negotiate peace with the Empire, I rather doubt war can be avoided here. But every moment we steal for our preparations will come in the final reckoning. Or will count in the final reckoning. Jeez. If Emperor Varys... Oh, is Emperor Varys enthralled to the Ascians? That is the question. Should the Empire decide to ignore the rules of parley, we could be fighting far sooner than we'd like. Keep your weapons close. Okay, I think that's everybody. Well, I don't suppose it's polite to keep an emperor waiting too long, shall we? This makes me think of like one of the promos or whatever for Battlestar Galactica. Just the room. Or maybe it was like the very beginning of the first episode. I don't remember. It's been a while since I've watched it.
Esteemed representatives of the Eorzean Alliance, on behalf of the Garlean Empire, I thank you for inviting me here today. As this parley was convened at your request, I invite you to speak first.
Very well, Your Radiance. I, Nanimo Ulnamo, 17th in the line of Ul, should be pleased to oblige you. As recent events in Alamigo and Doma have made plain, the subjugation and exploitation of neighboring nations is not a sustainable policy. Should this day end in war, you may very well defeat us, but you will never extinguish the people's desire for freedom. Though it may not be in our lifetime, there will be another revolution, another war, and the cycle will continue. Doma has entered into a concord with the nations of Eorzea, a partnership wherein we recognize one another as equals. Garlemald could be afforded similar treatment. You need only set aside your ambitions and join us in paving a path towards peace.
You will not win me over with sophistry, Your Grace. As you know only too well, this alliance lacks the strength to keep the peace within its own borders. Even now, your struggles with the Beastmen continue unabated. Divided, you sow this fertile soil with the seeds of your differences and reap naught but discord and chaos for your trouble. Eorzea must be united under one leader, one purpose. I would offer you both and bring an end to your strife.
With all due respect, Your Radiance, the only thing that you offered the people of Alamigo was fear and hopelessness.
The citizens of Doma can also attest to the meager arms of imperial rule. There is no purpose to be found in a life of oppression, each day more uncertain than the last.
Our people are willing to die for their freedom. A great many already have, and countless more will, if we don't put an end to this madness here and now.
We brought order and stability to your lives. This madness and bloodshed is of your own making. You broke the peace, not Garlemald.
Peace. Order. You kill our peoples, despoil our lands, take everything that is ours. And what? You expect us to lick the boot that grinds our faces into the dirt?
I expect you to weigh the costs. To recognize that countless lives have been lost on both sides in pursuit of a greater good, and to not squander all we have achieved in a fit of petulance.
Your Radiance, I fear I can personally attest to the dangers of pursuing one's vision with such righteous fervor. For 1,000 years, the Holy See of Ishgard waged war with dragons. A 1,000 years of sacrifice, of sorrow and hate, in which we bathed in the blood of friend and foe alike. Had it gone on any longer, we may well have drowned. Yet we have chosen to raise ourselves out of this bloody spiral, and have since made peace with our former enemy.
So I understand. No doubt the dragons were more receptive to your overtures in the wake of their leader's demise. You speak of peace, yet use war to achieve it. Your father would not have bothered to obscure his intent with honeyed words. He understood that strength is all that matters in the end.
Varys' ability to turn their words against them is...
Without his clarity of vision, I can but wonder what will become of Ishgard and her people. There was a time when Garlemald too lacked a leader of conviction. Weak and unable to wield magic, we were at the mercy of the strong from whom we sought refuge in the bitter cold of the north. Were it not for the discovery of ceruleum and the subsequent development of magitech, we might never have gained the power to take back that which was rightfully ours.
You speak as if your people were the first to have been driven from their homes. Limsa Lominsa was built by wayward souls in search of a place to call their own. On the shores of Vilbrand we found it, and from those humble beginnings did we grow and flourish. And all without robbing our neighbors of their liberty.
Not true.
So saith the pirate. Am I to believe that you simply asked the kobolds to yield up their lands and that they were happy to oblige you? That you did not drive them out like rats in the hold of one of the many ships seized by your privateers? I will concede that after centuries of exile, reclamation may be mistaken for invasion. Nevertheless, it is not. And those who till stolen soil have no right to object when cast out in turn.
Your uncompromising nature rivals that of the Ixal. They too lament circumstances which they themselves perpetuate. Were they but to embrace peace, we would welcome them with open arms. Indeed, some few have done just that, and now receive of the 12's Wood's bounty. Would that your people might learn from their example.
You dare compare us to the Birdmen? You who thought to invoke the 12 and threaten all of creation? I came here in the hope of finding some speck of common ground, but I see now these discussions will accomplish nothing. Despite what you people may believe, I am not wont to choose the sword over the olive branch. 'Tis but a pity men are loath to accept one without first being shown the other.
Wait! I beg you. This meeting was supposed to be a chance to find a way forward together, not to bemoan the missteps which brought us here. Please. If you truly consider violence a last resort, there must be a way we can come to an agreement.
As Mistress Alisaie says, we did not come here to bicker over the past, but to discuss how we might strive towards a brighter future. Emperor Varys, may I suggest a short recess, that all present might compose themselves prior to beginning anew?
Very well. I pray this intermission will suffice to move these talks in a more constructive direction.
Yeah, that was some brilliant debating on Varys's part. You know, basically saying that, like, everything you accuse me and my nation of doing is exactly what you've been doing the entire time, too. And it's stuff that I think probably a lot of us, you know, playing the game, like, didn't really think of until that point. Just brilliantly done. For a moment, I feared our talks would descend into violence there and then. Alisaie speaks of her dislike of politics, but her honest plea may very well have prevented an early battle. Whatever rebuttal I had in mind was lost when Varys mentioned my father. The man is certainly skilled at keeping his opponents off balance. And being well informed. 'Tis true that Limsa Lominsa's beginnings were not wholly honorable, but our old wrongs do not make the Empire's deeds right. The problem is that it's not just your old wrongs, it's your current wrongs. You know, you're still doing it, maybe to a less aggressive degree than before, but it's still being done. I do much wonder at Emperor Varys' decision to attend these negotiations. It is plain he has no intention of hearkening to our entreaties. But what then is his goal? Well, I mean, he's trying to convince us, you know, to basically, you know, give up our freedoms to Garlemald. For years have we warred with the Empire, and with no end in sight. A parley such as this represents a unique opportunity, and I would not squander it with bitter words. Varys holds fast to his ideals, just as I knew he would. He will not be swayed from this path. Why do I get the feeling the Emperor is hiding something? Yeah. I remember... Does he actually mention that the Empire is being commanded or was created by an Ascian? He mentions something of the sort. And then just basically says, but our goals are aligned or whatever. Like the only way to make things right is the rejoining. But I don't even know if he understands that, like, he'll be wiped out. Presumably, I think he'll be wiped out. But I don't know. I still don't quite understand, I think, how it all works with the people on the source. I mean, obviously, any of the physical destruction kills people. But then the people that live... Because I think they get the ether of their counterparts on the shard that was destroyed. But I'm not entirely sure. But then again, like, how does that work? Because the timelines of each are split. Like, you know, like, I would imagine Varys does not exist on a shard. You know, because Emmett didn't start a family on one of the other shards. I don't know how all that works. I mean, maybe it was explained in Shadowbringers, and so we'll get more of that. Or maybe that's something that gets explained maybe in Endwalker. Or maybe it hasn't been explained and won't be explained. I don't know. Anyway. Phew, this is really not my forte. After his Radiance's little performance, it was all I could do not to swear at him. I honestly don't know how I ended up playing the mediator. I just asked myself what Alphino would have done. Tried my best to do the same, and by some miracle it worked. But there really is no common ground to be found with that man, nor do I think he looked for any. So the question becomes, what did he come here to do? Because you may be certain it wasn't to make peace. Whatever it is, I cannot make it out. Not yet, in it, at least. We do have a little time before the parley is due to reconvene, though. So why not try consulting our illustrious leaders? Mayhap they have some insight to share. Okay. I will say one thing for this Varys. He is well versed in Eorzean history. His interest in our affairs is that of a beast in its prey. The conqueror would know his enemies. All should know their enemies, yet there is much and more we do not know of the Empire. I'm sure Varys would be happy to tell you more. Then it's up to us to change that, here and now. Yeah, that sounds like the more positive way of going about it. Ha! You would have me ask the Emperor himself? Well, mayhap there is some wisdom in that. If we can skirt the storm of his displeasure, we may yet come to our answers, even if it does mean sailing close to the wind. I mean, if nothing else, asking him to give a history of Garlemald or whatever, you know, uses up more of that time we can use to shore up our own forces. This parley was never like to bring peace, but I had hoped to learn something of Emperor Varys' relationship with the Ascians. As had we all. Yet if he is in league with them, he is not like to volunteer the fact. And if he is not, how much weaker would his position seem for their presence? If we are to broach that particular subject, we will need to be subtle. Would that I knew more of the man. If you would indulge me, Lord Hien. You received an imperial education, did you not? Is it true that the Emperor's will is considered absolute? There is no higher authority in all of Garlemald, nor else in the heavens, come to that. Veneration of the gods is forbidden, the only worship permitted being that of His Radiance's own person. That sounds suspiciously like a religion in itself. Yeah. I share your disdain for their hypocrisy. Even as they denigrate the idea of faith, they revere their leader with a fervor others reserve for the divine. 'Tis a flaw common to much of the doctrine they fed us. Logical on the surface, perhaps, but contradictory upon closer examination. I wonder if a discussion of the various discrepancies might prompt Varys to reveal something. And that actually got me thinking about, we haven't seen anything more from actual Varys yet. I'm trying to think of like when he comes back. Is that in Stormblood, or does that not happen until Shadowbringers? I don't remember. 12 have mercy. But for Lady Alisaie's timely interjection, we might well have come to blows at the negotiating table. Not that Emperor Varys left us a great many options. Is unconditional surrender all he will accept, do you think? Ere he arrived, I'd have said yes, but having heard him speak, I cannot help but think he came with some other end in mind. Exactly. He's building up to something, I know it. How then should we approach the rest of the parley? Have you some anything to add, Warrior of Light? Invite Varys to explain himself. Say nothing of Xenos or the Ascians. Okay, is that meant to be, like, because I know in their speak, like, say nothing of can be, like, you know, like, not to mention Xenos or the Ascians. Like, there's more to this, but I think just going with the first option is the clearest. You believe he is more apt to reveal the truth if we put him at his ease? Mayhap you are right. Thank you, Lavenza. You've spoken with everyone, then? Good. Now all that remains is to await the pleasure of the Emperor, and hope we fare better at the second attempt.
Now then, who would have the floor?
Before we resume, I wish to offer you an apology. After you graciously accepted our invitation to discuss an armistice, we have done naught but rebuke you at every opportunity. I believe I speak for all of us when I say we are deeply sorry for our discourtesy.
I'll admit your familiarity with our affairs surprised me, and served to remind me how little I know of yours.
I think all here can understand the desire to reclaim one's homeland. But why expand further? That is my question.
If I may, the answer can be found in the Imperial doctrine they took great pains to impart to my people. Recognizing the threat icons pose to the world, Solus Zos Galvus decreed that they were to be eradicated. To this end, he began a campaign to unite all lands under the Garlean banner. Or so we were taught. Yet the Emperor only reached the burn, the Barrens said to have been laid waste by icons, after conquering all the lands that lay between. What is more, I am quite certain the practice of summoning was not nearly so widespread in the days before the Empire's founding.
When you put it like that, it all starts to sound like an excuse, doesn't it? But to distract from what? Why are you really waging this war?
Finally, you ask the right question. I can but hope you heed mine answer and at last accept the righteousness of our cause. My goal is this: to return the world to the way it once was, the way it was always meant to be. In doing so, mankind will be made whole once more. No longer will we suffer from the dissension born of our differences. There will be but one race, a perfect race, as we were when time began.
What in Rhalgr's name are you talking about?
I am talking about the origins of this star, of the source and its 13 reflections. At the instant of the great sundering, 'twas not only the world that was shattered, but mankind itself. Thus were we divided into myriad races, each with its own unique imperfections. That is why man looks upon his neighbor and feels fear and hatred, why he wages war, why he kills his brother. You all in your own way have proven as much today.
The peace you seek is but a fleeting solution to a fundamental problem. One which calls for more drastic measures. To bring about everlasting peace, our worlds must be rejoined. That is the goal the Empire would see realized. The glorious future unto which we shall one day shepherd mankind.
A rejoining of worlds.
I have heard this tale of the Source and its reflections before.
Are these not the self-same desires as the Ascians?
Emperor Varys, do not trust in their words. They will lead you to your doom. My father thought to use them, but in the end he succumbed to their temptations. He embraced summoning like so many other pawns before him. Do not tell us you mean to do the same.
To be a pawn, free from the burden of choice, would be a blessing. But I forswore that privilege the day I learned that the Garlean Empire was built by the hand of an Ascian.
What?
Yes. My grandsire, the former emperor, is of their number. And who better to build an empire capable of bringing about the calamitous change we desire? Would you condemn me for this alliance? For bowing to the will of these shadowy masters, when the prize is true and lasting peace?
Oh man, like I was wondering for a second. I was like, does anybody else know that the rejoining, or specific, not just the word the rejoining, but the meaning of the rejoining, is an Ascian plan? But they did, because I was going to say, oh, does everybody think this plan was actually first the Garleans before finding out it's actually the Ascians? But obviously this makes me now think of Amarat, and I mean, it did appear to act, because so you think of the Ascians and you think of like, oh, their honeyed lies or whatever, and that, oh, there will be everlasting peace. But from what we do know of the ancients, there was peace before the ringing or whatever it was that eventually, I think it drove everybody mad, which then caused them to start summoning monsters and all of that stuff. And I don't think we know what that ringing is yet. And presumably we'll find that out in Endwalker. But outside of that, I mean, it seems like that it may actually be true to some degree that the rejoining would create at least some form of peace. Anyway, okay, your prize is a lie, your master's demons. I will stop you and the Ascians, no matter the cost. It's interesting. Because again, the prize may not actually be a lie. And the masters, his masters aren't necessarily demons. I mean, especially from what we know from Shadowbringers. So the more truthful one is, I will stop you in the Ascians, no matter the cost. Which is very much true.
I come not to conquer, but to liberate. To free man from the prison of divergence. Imagine a world united. One perfect race beneath a single standard. An army before whose might these servants of darkness and light would fly as leaves in a storm, never again to meddle in man's affairs. We would be the masters of our own fate.
Yeah, he doesn't actually know what the rejoining will do.
I bid you join me, not as subjects of Garlemald, but of a new nation. And together we shall win freedom for ourselves and generations yet unborn.
You want to trigger another half-dozen calamities? You can't be serious!
Have you forgotten how many died? There will be no one left.
Do you truly imagine we would aid you in your bloodletting?
It is unthinkable, unconscionable.
And what is the alternative? To be as cattle waiting for slaughter? I would have us work together, that we might take fate into our own hands!
Into your hands, perhaps. But what of the other worlds, your radiance? With every calamity, you obliterate a star and every soul that dwells on it.
To the Ascians, we are all but tiny, momentary specks within an indifferent universe. We cannot hope to oppose them until we have been made whole once more.
Are these truly the words of Garlemald's ruler? The flaws and foibles which you so abhor are what make us who we are. Every nation, even yours, Emperor Varys, is made whole through the combination of these imperfections, the strengths of one compensating for the weaknesses of another. While it is true that man succumbs all too often to anger and avarice, he may yet overcome his baser instincts through the forming of bonds with others, fostering community and cooperation. That the protector of an empire should not only reject these fundamental truths, but seek to change them at so dear a cost to life is indefensible. Such a man is not fit to govern.
And you, warrior of light, would you refuse me as well?
Yeah, dude, because you don't even, like, you're still falling for an Ascian lie. I cannot condone such a loss of life. We can defeat the Ascians as we are, which is very true. I mean, both are true, but I think, you know, the second one just less of like a dour spin to it. You know, it's focused more on victory than defeat. And we've been proving it.
It would seem the Alliance is of one mind on this matter.
You Eorzeans never cease to disappoint me. Though I suppose I have only myself to blame for expecting more from savages. This discussion is at an end. I bid you make ready for our next meeting. It will not be at the negotiating table.
To know that he just intends to bring on 6 more calamities, it's like, you can't support that. And still wonder what the Ascians intended to do with the 13th. I mean, I guess it was just get all the others out of the way and then finally spend the time to figure out what the hell to do with the 13th. His grand plan is to bring about more calamities. This is insanity. This madman must be stopped at all costs. We suspected Ascians meddled in these shadows of the Empire, but the truth is far beyond my wildest imagining. At least now we know the face of our enemy and need not hesitate to strike at its heart. Yeah, I mean, to know that, like, this enemy is not one to be negotiated with. Like, there is no negotiating. Like, to be sure of that. You know, because a lot of times you kind of project that onto them. But in this case, it's like, I mean, their goal is basically the eradication of all life. I'm glad we arrived in time to aid in the battle. Though our vanguard may be small, these few are our chosen elite. The finest warriors of the Far East. The Empire exists to wage war, and war it shall have. But its vast armies pour in like the tides themselves. This could very well be the greatest military threat Eorzea has ever faced. Ooh. I was wondering where the rest were. Okay. The Ascians are terrible beings indeed, that they would found an entire nation to further their dark designs. It would seem that the Empire's history is as sinister as Ishgard's own. I mean, more so. The Temple Knights have deployed in full strength. Eorzea's future is Ishgard's future, and our fates ride upon the outcome of this conflict. Nobody else out there. We got Pippin here. My first engagement as Flame General, and it is full-scale war with the Empire. I feel some measure of nervousness, of course, but I swear I will make Father proud in the battles to come. Nanamo! Now that we have learned the Emperor's true purpose, war has become an inevitability. 'Tis times like these I curse my own uselessness in battle. I refuse the Emperor's words with all of my being. What justice is there in an ideal that demands the sacrifice of so many? Which is interesting because that's essentially the story of the end for the ancients, you know, which is solving things with sacrifice after sacrifice. It makes a twisted kind of sense that the Empire was built by the Chaos Bringers themselves. The revelation yet rattles me, but now that we know our enemies are one and the same, we have a target upon which to unleash the full force of the Alliance. It makes you wonder what their stance on the actual people of the Empire would be. You know, how do you treat the people that are being governed by like such a terrible enemy? I mean, without knowing and understanding that maybe like they're not really a part of it, they don't understand it, and they're not, I don't know. I mean, all you could do is just inform them. And then if they still follow that line of thought, it's like, okay, well, that's it then. Send me to the front lines, if you please. We'll give the Imperials a taste of the Maelstrom's cannons, not to mention my axe. And I know, yeah, this dude. I was born in the Empire, but I will never serve the Emperor. Only the Seed Seer commands my loyalty. And I think that is everybody. All right. I came back to find Doma's advance party ready and waiting for battle. So as worrying as our little chat with the Emperor was, it did buy enough time for at least some of our allies to arrive. Now this is just nuts. Like, that's a huge revelation. Just trying to go over everything. Like, there's just a lot said there. Trying to think if I have any questions. I mean, the biggest takeaway is just now, like, we know that our two enemies are one and the same. And I kind of feel bad for Varys because, like, he doesn't really support the Ascians. He's still, like, I mean, he even said, like, once we're all combined in one again, we'll be able to fight the Ascians. Now, I don't know exactly, like I said, exactly what happens to all the people on the Source, assuming they survive everything. Like, assuming the rejoining is completed, do the survivors just turn back into ancients, or are they left as they are, then to just be wiped out by the Ascians to recreate the original ancients? Either way, he just doesn't know, and he's more a fool than any of us, which again kind of makes you feel bad for him. Because again, he's on our side. He just doesn't realize that his plan is not feasible. Thank you for watching this video. Tonight's stream, like so many of them, particularly recently, was absolutely excellent. We finished off Stormblood. And as just a quick preview of the usual review I give during, you know, the credits of the expansion, it was phenomenal. And I think I may actually like Stormblood more than Heavensward. Ooh. But yeah, and so now we'll be moving on to Shadowbringers, which I've been looking forward to so much. So yeah, if you enjoyed this and you want to see more, like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to come join me live, which I would much appreciate, the link to my Twitch is in the description down below. Thank you again for watching, and have a good one.